I'm not sure what winning means in this context. I mean, they took part of Ukraine. They're spending billions to keep it functioning. They got sanctions imposed, which cost them additional billions. I'm not clear where the win is here. So I don't think there is a win for them at a geopolitical level. You can win militarily, you can certainly occupy it, and then you're bogged down in a long fight that you probably don't want to be in. Because again, as we've seen from the last 20 years, if the population is motivated, then simple weapons like IEDs can cause a steady drain of casualties, and there's really not a lot you can do about it.
There have been mixed signals coming from the administration. That is, this persistent hope that you could have a stable and predictable relationship with Putin is a long time. They're spending too much time invested in that. It's not unreasonable. It's not a bad idea to look for a stable and predictable relationship, but it doesn't matter what we want. What matters is what Putin is willing to do. So, time for plan B. And stop clinging to the notion that you're going to have stable and predictable. Push back. I get the administration's desire to focus on China. I get the desire to stabilize the relationship with Putin. The best way to stabilize the relationship with the Kremlin is resist their aggression now. That increases the odds of getting to a better result later.
There's actually lessons that both sides can learn from their different focus. The EU needs to be more geopolitical. It needs to be more, not so much security, but strategically focused in its approach. The Commission, EU Commission, von der Leyen Commission said it would be more strategic. We're waiting out a little bit on this to actually happen. Global Gateway will be a test, and it will be a very important one. But it needs to treat China as not just an economic problem, because it isn't just an economic problem. So there's learning to be done here, and same for the US. The thing with the US is unless you define your problem strictly and clearly, you end up hurting your firms and you end up hurting your allies too much. And so if you have catch-all national security reasoning for everything you do, when at the end of the day, it's just IP theft or specifically subsidies you're trying to address, then the negative spillovers on yourself and on the rest of the world are just inefficient, and they're just wasteful.
It used to be, I mean, especially in the kind of pure economic theory in terms of how these exchanges should take place, you know, that you kind of wanted to limit government intervention in the economic sphere. And that was kind of the basis for the, you know, the way that the International Trade Agreement, I mean, in theory, in practice, it wasn't always so clear cut. But now we see an actor which is very heavily involved in the success of its companies, and also directing their companies to do certain things. And so this kind of raises—
You're referring to China, of course.
Yes, and this raises a security flag, right? Because it might just not be company motives that are at play, but broader security motivations that guide those companies. Perhaps they're being not only prodded, but forced to act in a particular way. And so I think that is also very important in understanding the term to economic statecraft.
The U.S. strategy toward Africa, for me, it's a useful tool for African to, or to the US to interact with Africa. But I always take the thinking the other side and saying, what's the Africa strategy toward the US?
Right.
And that would be the first thing I would do, because it would be difficult for me to engage with the US if it's not clear in my mind exactly where I'm going. So now we have at least the Vision 63, we have the CFTA. So the issue is to say, okay, in this approach on discussing about the strategy, let's discuss what you want to do with us in terms of the CFTA. And it goes back to what I'm saying, mobility, and mobility. Trade is about moving people, moving goods. And the infrastructure deficit is so big. But look at the US. I mean, when the US goes and spend $1 trillion to refurbish infrastructure, it shows that infrastructure is important. Even as Karim was saying, that this is something that is done for the US, but look at how much money they are bringing back